In a recent interview, aren't they all? Hillary Clinton was asked if being a capitalist hurt her in the election. She replied, quote, "Heavens no, losing was entirely my fault and I alone. I am to blame."
Oh my God.
She didn't really say that.
Your diary.
If you're in the Iowa caucuses and 41% of Democrats are socialists or self-described socialists, and I'm asked, are you a capitalist? And I say yes, but with appropriate regulation and appropriate accountability, you know, that probably gets lost in the, oh my gosh, she's a capitalist.
But here's the thing. On this one, she's right. We're in a midterm year. You know who's doing a lot of campaigning for the candidates? Bernie. But also look at the popular issues: universal college access, single-payer health care, $15 minimum wage, identity politics galore. So yeah, Hillary, the capitalist, was right for once. The Democratic Party is now the Socialist Party. Here's their new campaign video.
Sharing is awesome. Democrats 2018.
Oh, yes.
Terry, I hate to admit it when she's right.
I know.
But if you blame everybody, you're bound to be right once.
Exactly. You throw it at the wall, something's going to stick. Here's the ironic thing, is that Hillary Clinton's not a capitalist. Not at all. She's a government-controlled, she's evil warlord. she's a Sith Lord. She's evil
How
emperor.
dare you on?
So she's not. So she's not a real capitalist. But it's funny that her explaining that she was taken down because is true, because the socialists perceived her as one. And why do they perceive her? 44% want to go to socialism. Right. They've been indoctrinated. The old ones that moved to Vermont with Bernie and just, you know, smoke weed every day are like, yeah, man, authority sucks. They're the ones who convinced it. So she did lose because she's a capitalist, but she's not a capitalist.
Kat, will the Democrats win on socialist values?
I sure hope not. But I also don't think that that's the only reason why she lost.
Of course.
I think she lost also because she's a nightmare.
Yeah.
She's very unlikable. And also, Bernie was far left of her on issues other than just economics, like foreign policy and criminal justice reform, when she was all about prisons, and she was kind of a war hawk. So I think that had a lot more to do with going further left in all areas rather than just going further left in economic areas.
Sebastian, I want her to run again.
Oh, please, please.
Do you think she will, guys? Do you think she will?
Why not?
And Kerry and Biden, it would be fabulous.
Yes.
I think it was Sean, our colleague, who counted up the number of excuses she's used.
Yes.
And it was like 42.
Yes.
Is this 43?
I think it is.
I think next it'll be global warming.
Yes.
Made me lose.
You know why? Because people decided to go to the beach instead of voting.
Yeah. It was a nice day.
It was a nice day.
Kat nailed it. She is a harridan. She is a disaster. That's why she lost.
Yes. Tyrus, thoughts on this? How far left will the Democrats go this year, you think?
How far left? That's like I don't know. How they're not. They're going to go so far left that they won't vote. They'll protest the vote. That's what they'll do. That way they can't really lose because they protested. But there's one big reason she lost. She lost this election 8 years prior. When she lost to Obama, it was the same thing. It was just Democrats were saying, ew, she's entitled. Ew, she's not a nice person. Oh, she's full of it. Like, they didn't believe her then.
Yeah.
And they didn't believe her now. I mean, and they're not going to, but for whatever reason, as long as she's got enough money and enough people. First of all, who the hell's interviewing her now?
Yeah.
Right, and why? What person is like, hey, I'm going to get Hillary on the show, boss, and we're going to find out why she lost.
Yeah.
If I said that to you, who the hell? Let's get to the bottom of this. It's very simple. More people voted for him than you.
Well, actually, they will always say that
in the college.
In the college.
In electoral college, correct?
Yes.
In our system that's been used for all these years, yes.
Yes. The system we now have to get rid of.
Okay, exception of California and New York, with exception of California and New York,
You know what's funny about the left, too? They constantly worship iconoclasts, right? They do. That's their whole thing. Oh, tear it down. If you think about it, Trump, for whoever he is, there's no better iconoclast right now. He's destroyed the media. He's destroying the entrenched, political side. Now, like I said, I don't think he's a particularly moral man. He seems to me like one of those guys, like if you worked for him, he's like, hey, you do the right thing, I'll take care of you. But that's okay.
He's very loyal.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. In the military, like, I get that. Like, we stand with each other. I know some bad things about a lot of dudes, and they know a lot of bad things about me, but we'll bury the bodies for you.
But
That's good to know.
Yeah.
hey,
Next time, if you
They'll never find
Terry,
it.
if you bury a body, make sure it's in those pants and boots.
But look at where he won.
Shut up.
This is really important what Terry said. He won in areas that we were told the GOP would never,
Not
ever
possible.
win.
Yeah.
I went to Youngstown, Ohio with the president. This is Steel Valley.
Yeah.
And we had 25,000 people in the stadium, and you knew that they were former registered Democrats, their parents,
Union,
their grandparents.
all that, yep.
When he came out on stage, when she came out on stage, when Melania came out, they were screaming, USA, drain the swamp. He won, and this is important for November, he won despite the GOP, not because of the GOP.
True.
And that's the lesson that the right has to understand.
We got to go.
Yeah, totally.
Did you want to say something? Coming up, why are some people calling this prom dress offensive? Reminds me of the time they told me leather chaps aren't business casual. Such a mess over a dress. Long story short, white girl posts pictures in her prom dress on social media. It's a traditional Chinese dress. Some social justice weenies took offense and said the magic words, cultural appropriation. And then the media writes about the outrage the dress sparked. But you know who wasn't outraged by it? China! Over there, this story isn't appropriation, it's called appreciation. Look, if you really wanted, thank you, clap away. If you really wanted to be a pain, you can claim appropriation on anything, like socks. The ancient Greeks came up with them. Do I have to throw my socks out because I'm not Greek? What about yogurt? Greeks didn't invent that. A bunch of Asian herdsmen did back in 6000 BC. Are you not an Asian herdsman? Then you get no yo. Toilets, Scotland.
Thomas Crapper.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Nice.
Toilet paper, China. And yet it's called Scott tissue. How dishonest. Perfume was invented in Mesopotamia. That's not even a place anymore. Do you walk upright? How dare you steal the practice initiated by Ardipithecus ramadas, the earliest hominid from Ethiopia? Look, our country's only 242 years old. Most of life's essentials were invented way before we came along. If we didn't borrow from other cultures, no one would ever evolve. We'd be a crawling, starving, stinking mess, like these two.
Come on.
Selfish little rodents. Cats! You're the expert at prom dresses, I assume.
I had one before, yeah.
You've worn one before?
Uh-huh.
So we do have something in common.
Yeah.
Well played, Greg. Well played.
What are your thoughts on cultural appropriation?
And I think that it gets out of hand, and I think that it's really awful that so many people were basically bullying this high school girl over her dress. People were really, really mean to her. They weren't just like, let me try to educate you. They were being mean to her.
Yeah.
And I just can't imagine having the time and the energy to sit there on the internet and bully a kid about a dress. I mean, I thought I didn't have a social life.
Yeah.
But damn.
I know I sound funny, Greg, but I'm an American now.
Yes.
And I want it to be known as of today that we will ban anyone who is not American from wearing blue jeans and baseball hats.
Very good.
Cultural appropriation.
Yeah, absolutely.
They belong to us.
You can't wear
what do you think?
tuxedos were made in Tuxedo Park, which is part of New York, I believe. So if you're not an American and you're going to the prom, no tuxedo for you.
Well, this was all started by that Jeremy Lamb, that Asian kid. It was basically the outrage over this girl wearing a Chinese dress was started by a little chubby Asian dude unironically appropriating a frickin' baseball hat in his picture, and if you go back through his tweets, appropriating the N-word multiple times.
Say what?
Only Tyrus can say that. I can't say that. I can't. Yeah, I woke him up. I can't say that. Tyrus can say that.
See, now next to bitch, that'll really get you much.
This is what I'm saying. By the way, this little Asian dude saying that word like,
wouldn't even get
damn.
it out.
So I guess there's no end to that circle of idiocy.
Well, you know what's interesting though, Tyrus? There is no way to fight back because when a social justice warrior tries to take something fun from you, like prom, you can't return the favor because they don't have anything fun to do. They're too busy.
You can fight back. She should have put up more pictures.
She actually was pretty good though, wasn't she?
Her friends should have got together, and her date should have got the appropriate male version, the counterpart of that, whatever that is. Because I'm not really big in China, I don't fit the clothes. But I'm saying is, instead of being like, the real reason they were mad is because she looked good.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
She looked good. She had a beautiful day.
And she had a smile on her face.
That's what people do who don't. Apparently, he's chubby and wears a baseball hat. That ain't me. I'm jacked. But I got swole. I can have this because I have this.
That's right. That's right.
I'm just saying, when I get hit with that, I give it to them more.
Yeah.
They're like, don't talk. I talk more.
Yeah.
They're like, don't lift weights like you do all the time. I lift more. Kiss my ass. You don't like it, and that should be her attitude. That should be our attitude. Whenever someone tries to appropriate me, punch him in the mouth back with more of it.
Well, you know what the thing is? This trend is the social justice warrior movement is the literal fun police. That they won't rest until everything's ruined. Cinco de Mayo, you can't do that. Any
St.
kind of
Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day, bad. And any group that is devoid of humor is dangerous because you cannot engage. You can't have fun with them. That means they want your subservience at the end of the day.
But luckily,
they want to destroy stuff.
But luckily, we live in a time when that stuff happens. We have a citizen president, and I'll just do what the president would do. And when they said, oh, you can't do this about the Cinco de Mayo or whatever, what'd he do? He copped a video with a taco salad.
Yes.
So, you see what I'm saying? So, if someone gets online, do what the president would do.
Got it. All right, still to come, the Boy Scouts are taking a very important word out of their name, and it isn't Scouts. We investigate what it could be next. Will there be less tent pitching and more cross-stitching? Next year, the Boy Scouts of America will change the name of their program for 11 to 17-year-olds to Scouts BSA. The BSA standing for Best Socks Around. It's true, thank God. The reason for the change, they'll now start accepting girls who will now be able to advance to the highest rank, which is Eagle Scout, which means they get their very own eagle. I don't know anything about the Scouts. Of course, lots of companies changed their names. Kentucky Fried Chicken became KFC. WWF became WWE. And the Five was once called the Greg Gutfeld Show, plus 4 other annoying people. Meanwhile, the Cub Scouts for brats ages 7 to 10 has already started admitting girls. Over 3,000 have signed up. In response, the Girl Scouts of America has begun their own recruitment program, including rolling out new merit badges. My favorite is peanut butter painting.
What have you been doing to your brother? You don't know?
Scrub with him.
You were scrubbing him?
Yeah.
Oh, Ethan. Does it feel good?
Tyrus, how do you feel about this?
You know, I understand.
You were a Boy Scout.
Yeah, I was a Boy Scout, and I really feel like in Peterson,
Jordan Peterson,
when he came, he talked about a lot. There are differences between us, and there are certain things that the Boy Scouts helped me do that I still to this day, as far as like respecting them and having a man's perspective on how to be a young adult when you don't necessarily had a man around the house. So for me, the Boy Scouts, it was an outlet to be a young man and like have questions and be curious and be able to ask stuff and feed off each other in a positive situation. So and there was an alternative. There was the Girl Scouts, and they did their own thing. So I just don't understand why we had to combine the two together. And maybe it's just because I was a part of that, and I feel like that was an American institution. And I don't understand why we had to change it, because we had something similar, or in some cases better. We had the Girl Scouts, we had the Boy Scouts, and then I just don't understand why we couldn't kept them different.
You know,
Breaking down traditions. That's what it is. It's the iconoclasm of our traditions. Get rid of religion. Get rid of that kind of. It's just like all these things that are threats to what we've been talking about all night. You know, this collective behavior.
So the Scouts was created by a general, Baden-Powell.
Baden-Powell,
And it
yeah,
had
British
a
guy, right?
Yeah, British guy.
Yeah.
It had a very specific role. It was how do you help young boys become men? And this is what they want to attack. And I'm going to say something shocking here. Girls are not boys and boys are not girls.
No way. No way. Burn him.
And congratulations on the Jordan Peterson, guest appearance. He's absolutely right. This isn't just an accident. This isn't about girls becoming Eagle Scouts. This is an ideological assault on our traditions of Judeo-Christian civilization. That's all it is.
You know, Kat, I know you were a Girl Scout. I think the ultimate end game here is no more distinctions. So they're erasing gender distinctions. So I'm saying to you, as a former Girl Scout, if you're going to get rid of gender distinctions so that boys can become Girl Scouts, why not get rid of age distinctions? So as a 53-year-old, I can join the Girl Scouts because I can say that I can self-identify as a 9-year-old girl.
I would
You can wear that prom dress again.
Yes, I still have the prom dress.
Way to look that up.
Doesn't that logically make some sense?
Right, you would definitely not have fit in with me and my friends, though. I'm just saying. When I was the age that I was a Girl Scout, I didn't want to hang out with boys.
Yeah.
I thought they had cooties. I wanted to make friendship bracelets and listen to the Spice Girls and get back at Tina for having another best friend other than me.
Right. I hated that.
I haven't forgotten Tina. I'm just kidding.
No, I always hated it when you became a secondary best friend.
Yeah, and
that
it's like
drove
I
me
wouldn't
nuts.
notice. Yeah,
Yeah.
But see, in the Boy Scouts, we were all a group.
Yes.
We were a troop. Like, we were getting our toes.
Okay, I take it back. I do want to join the Boy Scouts.
Yeah, we worked together. Like, we were challenged. You know, it was just different. Like I said, I don't get it.
Well, you know,
alone.
the other thing, too, is if all identity becomes fluid, it can also become highly specific, which means I can wake up and say, I'm not identifying as a woman, but as a specific woman. Like, I want to identify as Oprah Winfrey.
Right.
Or, why does it have to be a human being? Why can't I just wake up and go, I want to be a giraffe or an asteroid? Or, I should be, and then I should be on, like, some kind of disability. Unicorn disability.
You're just giving everybody an out on this show. Just everyone. Just helping
hey, if Liz Warren can do it, so can I.
No, we had that kid. We had a kid in our neighborhood who thought he was a dog, and we all encouraged him. And then one day we're like, "Hey, jackass, stop being a dog," and he stopped.
And it stopped, didn't
but
it?
for a while, it was like, "Okay, go get it." You know,
It stopped.
He became the world's best fetcher. They're going to make a movie out of him. Like, suddenly he became the world's best. He would fetch things, and he became famous for fetching. All right, I can shut up.
We've seen the same stuff in the military trying to do all the integration of men and women. We don't. Guys behave differently when they're by themselves than they.
Oh, tell me about it.
The way it is.
Don't go any.
On that note, it's time for break.
We got more to come. Stick around. We're running out of show. Final thoughts, Dr. Gorka. You got a book coming out?
Yes, I've got my second book coming out, Why We Fight, coming out in July for the beach.
Yeah.
So you can pre-order it now. But I've got a final thought for everybody.
Yeah.
Have faith, because Donald Trump never gives up.
I like it when he does it in that voice.
You can't resist this guy.
Have faith. Terry, you working on something?
So listen, everybody talks about helping vets. Go to taskforcedagger.org. I'm a dive instructor for them. We're actually taking wounded vets, teaching them. You guys don't know this. I was an archaeologist before I went in the Army, and that's my degree. We're teaching them maritime archaeology with East Carolina University, and then we're going to go to Saipan and excavate remains and bring them back to their families from World War II.
Wow. Well, when you're out there digging those remains, bury those pants.
I will not.
All right. Dr. Sebastian Gorka, thank you. Terry Schapper, Kat Tipp, Tyrus, studio audience, Dr. Gutfeld, I love you, America.
According to a recent article by a federal security clearance attorney, political opponents of President Trump inside the federal bureaucracy have weaponized the security clearance process in order to stall the president's nominations and slow down White House operations. That attorney, Sean Bigley, joins us now. Sean, thank you so much for joining us here. I read this piece that you wrote about this in the Wall Street Journal this week, and I have to say, it was one of those things where I wasn't shocked, but at the same time felt that this can't be real. It was so helpful for you to describe in detail what's going on. Tell us the specific case that you've been working on, and then we'll get to the broader lessons from it.
Absolutely. So the case is involving a gentleman named Adam Lovinger. He's a senior Defense Department official who was on loan to the White House. He was actually brought over there as a by-name request early in the administration.
What does that mean, by-name request?
They knew of his reputation, and essentially they decided that they wanted him as part of the White House policy team.
So the White House specifically said, we want this guy on our team.
They did. They reached into the bureaucracy and plucked him right out.
Right.
And unfortunately, his political views were not appreciated by those in the Pentagon in power, combined with the fact that he had actually exposed some corruption and some cronyism in contracting in a particular office in the Pentagon called the Office of Net Assessment. It's essentially the Pentagon's internal think tank. And what they're supposed to be doing is their namesake, net assessments, which are basically long-term strategy of emerging threats against the United States, things like Iran, China, cyber. And those were precisely the things that Mr. Lovinger thought they should be focusing on. Instead, what the office has become over the past few years is a slush fund for politically connected contractors to do absolutely ridiculous research reports at major expense to the taxpayer. So,
like what?
For example, there was a research report that came out on whether or not Americans are a warlike people, and that's something that the taxpayers were on the hook for, some large sum of money to produce. There was another one whether or not there was enough national security, coastal elites in the national security bureaucracy. $50 million that this office has shelled out to produce these reports.
So this guy exposed that, and then the White House wanted him, and he was blocked. When you say his political views were unacceptable, what does that mean? What political views?
Well, precisely. His political views were essentially in line with the president's and the administration's on issues like Iran, on China, on things like that I think most people would view as important things for the national security bureaucracy to focus on. Unfortunately, those were not in favor.
Okay, so this is really disturbing because you've got the bureaucracy saying that the White House can't have someone working there that agrees with the president and has done the public a service by exposing corruption and waste of money. Who is making that decision? Where's the sort of location of the problem? If we want to be really specific, not just the federal bureaucracy, is it Secretary Mattis? Who do we blame for this?
So I think it's really important that we drill down and identify precisely who these actors are, because part of the problem to date has been a lot of these folks have been able to hide in the shadows, if you will, hide behind the titles of their offices or just the bureaucracy in general. And in this case, it's a very obscure arm of the Pentagon known as the Washington Headquarters Service. It's an administrative arm. And in essence, it's where a lot of the personnel operations happen, the security clearance operations. And unfortunately, what you have there is some entrenched bureaucrats who have essentially decided to weaponize the process to keep Mr. Lovinger and others like him out of the administration.
So it sounds like Secretary Mattis needs to really take action and deal with this. Katrina, this is exactly the kind of thing you were talking about.
Well, not only that, but back in September, there was a government report talking about the number of individuals from the Obama administration that left their appointments and went into civil service. And that's been happening, you can make the argument it's happened before, but I think it's fair to say that we're in a political climate where it's not just about doing a specific job. People are now pushing political agendas or thwarting in the case of President Trump. And that's a big part of the problem. Maybe it's time to reform civil service, hiring and firing tactics. But more importantly, this is not just happening in one agency. It's happening in almost all of the agencies where, you, like I said, you don't have to be a political appointee. If they just know you support Trump, you have the careers in that agency that are just causing all kinds of trouble for you.
I mean, this is really serious. This is kind of this is going back to the previous discussion, this is an example of the counter-revolution.
Well, I think it's also true that here in America we have an adversarial legal system, and it is very important that we have folks like Sean who do a great job of fighting their corner, fighting for their clients. It's also the case, however, that there's another side to the story. And here on this panel, we don't necessarily have folks who have that expertise to say, hey, wait a second, we are patriotic folks who are in the civil service who take our jobs very seriously, and we want this to be a deliberative, serious process where we're carefully vetting folks. I'm sure that Mr. Lovinger is a very admirable and great person, but we don't know the entire story about what's going on, right?
And by the way, it's very hard to get it, isn't it? Because they're so untransparent about the whole thing.
That's right. And to Katrina's point, I mean, there's an old saying that personnel is policy. And essentially what you have here is the low-hanging fruit. In other words, the bureaucracy has decided security clearances are an easy grab for us. They're something that we can control. There's no oversight. They're not appealable to the courts. And so this is a really easy way for the bureaucracy to essentially thwart the president's policies and his agenda by keeping out people who will execute it.
So just to Katrina's point was like reform, civil service reform. What is the kind of reform that might deal with this problem?
I think what needs to happen specifically with security clearances is there needs to be some amendments put in place to current law that specifically define what happens to you if you weaponize this process, if you retaliate against someone, if you use it for a purpose other than what it's intended. Right now, we don't have that under current law. And so, in essence, you have certain folks in the bureaucracy who have really decided that this is something that they can run with. And
doesn't that cripple the system with more litigation? Because fundamentally, we're talking about national security here. You're talking about people who might have legitimate objections and concerns. You have serious secrets. You want to protect the national security of this country. Now, if you add a whole new layer of litigation, that's going to be great for the lawyers, but I'm not sure it's going to be great for the country when you actually want to make quick decisions. You want to make reliable decisions.
But I think in one word to sum this up is accountability.
Right.
It's that simple. And this has been discussed. The report back in the Washington Times, and I quote, Obama's political appointees switched to career jobs without obtaining necessary approval from the Office of Personnel Management. Where's the accountability?
There's even a term for it. I think they call it burrowing in. They sort of dig themselves in. I think this is a huge issue, this civil service reform issue. Sorry, we've got to leave it there. There's never enough time. It's such a big issue. Sean, thank you. I really appreciate you bringing this to our attention, and I hope we can keep on it because it's so important to getting this agenda delivered.